Hello everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. As part of a goal that I have in 2025 to read a lot of the books that are on my owned physical TBR, I thought I would show you what the current state of my bookshelves looks like. My plan is basically to read through as many of the books I have on my bookshelves now and then unhaul the ones I don't want. So hopefully by the end of the year, my bookshelves will be a lot more manageable, better organized, and full of books that I really love. As kind of context for the overall structure of my bookshelves, I live in a one-bedroom apartment with my wife. I didn't get into reading until 2020, and before that, my main hobby was sewing and cosplay, so the majority of the stuff in our apartment is actually set up more so to be conducive to that hobby. So I kind of have just been able to squeeze in bookshelves in random pockets of space that I have. The first bookshelf that we're going to go through is the one that normally is in the background of all of my videos, which is a long, thin Billy bookshelf. And then we're going to move over and talk about the bookshelf that I have in my reading nook, which is connected to my living room. So let's go ahead and get right on into the video. Okay, so we're going to start off by talking about all of the books that I have in the bookcase that is normally behind me in most of my videos. This is like the smaller version of the Billy bookcase. I think it's maybe like half the width, but it's still the full length as a traditional Billy bookcase. This version also has a door on the front of it with a glass pane on top and then a like completely closed off section on the bottom. Originally I was just going to get a standard like half-size Billy bookshelf without this like door attachment. But then literally the day we were going to go to IKEA to buy it, I ended up seeing that someone else in my apartment complex was selling their version of this for like 20 bucks, which is obviously much cheaper than going to buy it new. And I didn't have to assemble it. I just had to move it from one floor of our building to another. So I couldn't pass up on that deal. I also really like the design of it being like enclosed on top and then hidden on the bottom. I think that's definitely a design I would like to keep. At the very least, the like closed off on the bottom section when I eventually have a house and can do like some sort of like built-in design, since that is what I like grew up with in my childhood home for the bookshelves that were there. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up and we can talk about the books that are in this bookshelf. Starting at the very, very top, as you can see, I have 3 books that are in the Hollow Star Saga by Ashley Shuttleworth, and then on this top shelf is some like manga slash like other boys love adjacent things. At the very end here, you can't really see it, but I have some doujins. Then I have 2 Death Note related books, a prequel novel about L, as well as the short story collection. I have the 2 parts of New York, New York, which is a very old school boys love manga that I read back in like high school that I definitely need to do a reread of. And then kind of in continuing the vibes, I have the second book in the Captive Prince series by C.S. Pacat. If you've ever read that series, you will know that it's very similar in vibes to a lot of classic boys love manga, and I thought it fit over here very well. Then I have 2 volumes in Border by Kotaka Kazuma. This is my favorite boys love manga that I'm pretty sure no longer is being published in English, which kind of sucks. I have volumes 1 and 2 here, and then I'm pretty sure I have 3 and 4 in storage at my parents' house. And then at the very end, I have my statue of Aoba Saragaki from Dramatical Murder. This statue is like one of my pride and joys. It took me forever to get it after I pre-ordered it because they kept pushing back the release date. But it's so beautiful and I love having it in this case because this protects it from dust with like the glass pane here. Oh, and then over on this side, I have a tiny little statue of Lelouch from Code Geass. Okay, moving down one more shelf. This shelf is generally my special edition shelf, and I'm pretty sure all of these books, except for the 2 on the end, are from Illumicrate. In terms of like additional little things I have a set of charms hanging here as well as over here. Most of these are from Dazzling Bookish Shop. With their monthly subscription, you also would get a little charm that are characters from either series that they've done or just like other queer adult and young adult books. This one over here is from Hell Followed With Us. These ones I think are from the Raven Boys. And then this one I think is a character from Aiden Thomas's other series, which I'm completely blanking off right now. And then the ones over here, I have ones of Gideon and Haro, and then the 2 characters from Legends and Lattes. Also down here, I have a charm of Fear and Hunger that my friend Henry got me. It's very cute. I think I might eventually move it to become like a bag charm, but I thought for right now I would have it sit in this bookshelf. And all of these are connected by hooks that are basically stuck in to the different holes that are part of the Billy bookshelf that are so you can adjust the height of the different shelves. But I saw kind of like a hack in a Instagram reel about being able to hang charms using different hooks inserted into these. I think the hooks are a little bit loose, but I guess that makes it easier, at least for me, to be able to take them out and readjust them if I need to. And also on the shelf, I have this little strawberry container that is my TBR jar, which I've only really used once for a video. Definitely need to use that again in the future. And then on the other side, I have a little like Barnes & Noble gift card holder that I just thought was really cute since it looks like a tiny book. Okay, now let's talk about the actual books that are on the shelf. The top 3 up here are some of the Illumicrate books that I need to read. We have Starling House by Alex E. Harrow, To Cage a God by Elizabeth May, and A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. And then for the books that are over here that are all facing outwards so you can see the sprayed edges, I have the 2 books in the Reboot duology by Rin Chupeco. I have the 3 books in the Last Binding trilogy by Freya Marsk. We have Voyage of the Damned by Frances White, Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen. And then down here, I have 2 books that are not Illumicrate. I have here the UK hardback edition of Circe by Madeline Miller, as well as Portrait of a Thief by Grace D. Lee. Okay, so this is the last main shelf that you can view through the glass pane. On this side, I have 3 Little Sunny Angels. All of these I've gotten like years and years ago, since I know they're quite hard to find now. These 2 guys are kind of freeballing it, but then this one I actually gave to my grandma because as a child, my grandmother and my mother would collect Cubie dolls. And this one I think is actually an apple, but it kind of looks like a strawberry, which is another thing my grandmother really loved. And she decided he needed a little diaper to, be a little bit more modest. Honestly, she probably did the same thing with these guys. And then on the other side, in terms of little guys, I have this statue of Rei Ryugazaki from Free. Again, had this for years. I got it when I was in Japan in like 2016. It's very cute. It used to be on like my vanity area, but I moved it in here just because I thought it was very cute. I have more of those charms from Dazzling Bookish Shop hanging here. We have Evelyn Hugo and her love interest from that book, as well as Yadriel and Julian from Cemetery Boys. And then we have all of the books on this shelf. As you can see, the majority of this shelf is my Danmei collection. On the very top here, I have a volume of manga, which is Boys Run the Riot. And then we move into all of the Danmei. I have 1 remaining volume of Scumvillain's Self-Saving System. I have sold a couple of my other volumes of this. Then I have my 5 volumes of Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. And then we move into my volumes of Husky and His White Cat Shizun. And then lastly on the shelf, I have 2 historical romances, which is We'll Look for Restless Rogues and Blue Stocking's Guide to Decadence, both by Jess Everly. Okay, now we're moving into the very chaotic section of my shelves. And that is basically the fact that I have no space pretty much anywhere in my apartment. So these ones end up getting like triple stacked up just to make them fit. The first section right here is I have the 3 books in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which I read for a reading vlog. Eventually, I'd like to have these actually on display somewhere. And then over here, I have basically the 2 main Dark Academia books I own, which is If We Were Villains, and then my copy of The Secret History. And then back here, the rest of these books are a lot of like young adult fantasy, plus some other books that just had to fit in this area. Like we have a picture of Dorian Gray sitting up here. And then also up here is my copy of Sorcery of Thorns. I have a copy of Fourth Wing, and then I have the rest of my Margaret Rogerson collection. So her other books, An Enchantment of Ravens, Vespertine, and Mysteries of Thorn Manor. I have my mass market paperbacks of Sabriel, Lyriel, and Aporson. And then the rest of the books that I have in the Old Kingdom series. So Clariel, Golden Hand, Across the Wall, and Terciel and Eleanor. And then the last book on the shelf is Fire and Blood by George R. R. Martin. Okay, we're now on to the second to last shelf, which again is double stacked to try and like fit as many books as possible down here. We have Serpent and Dove, Silver Under Nightfall. Ideally, when I get more shelf space, I'd love to have this book on display as well as like my special editions of this book series. But for now, unfortunately, he's living down here. We have The God of Endings, Pandora, and there's a couple other books that are kind of stuck on the top here. We have my copy of The Vampire Lestat, and then 2 other books in the Vampire Chronicle series. I have The Vampire Armand, as well as Blood and Gold. And then the rest of the shelf is pretty much a mishmash of genres. I have the 3 books in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber, The Night Circus, The Little Prince, Shadow of the Wind, The Orange, and then Leaves of Grass. And then at the end, I have my collection of volumes from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I have the very, very first volume, which is the first volume of Phantom Blood. And then I have volumes 2, 3, and 4 of Part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable, which was kind of intentional. I decided to not get the first part of Diamond is Unbreakable because I'm not a huge fan of the very, very start of that part, even though Part 4 is my favorite part of JoJo overall. I definitely want to buy more volumes of Diamond is Unbreakable in the future, but as you can see, I don't have a lot of space, so that's kind of on the back burner. And for the very last shelf on the bottom, apologies if this angle is hideous, but there isn't really any other space that I have to like put my camera so you can see what's going on down here. But again, I have a bunch of books double stacked, And then there's some other things on the shelf that aren't books. Starting off, we have Sword Crossed by Freya Marsk, Spirit Bares Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White, Until We Shatter by Kate Dillon. And then there's a couple other books that are double stacked up here. We have The Absinthe Underground by Jamie Pacton, Flyboy by Casey LeBlanc, and Godly Heathens by H.E. Edgmond. As you can see on the shelf, there is some other stuff that is not book related that maybe I should eventually move out of here, but I don't really have an alternative location for them, so keeping them in my bookshelf kind of makes sense for right now. And that is over here. I have all of my DS games, as well as my 3DS, as well as some old journals, as well as all of my Monsta X CDs. I have a lot more K-pop CDs, but they're actually all in storage at my parents' house. The only ones I kept here are my Monsta X ones, because they, I think for a while, had become like my alt group. I'm like an old school K-pop fan. I've been a fan since I was in high school, and back then I was really into like Big Bang and Block B. I still really like Block B, but kind of spiritually, they're very similar to Monsta X, and all of my friends were really into that group, so I have a lot of their CDs from over the years, and those are the only ones I kept here, because my wife also really likes them, so they're kind of like for communal use from both of us. Anyway, in terms of like the last books that I have on this shelf, we have my 2 books by Julia Armfield, Our Wives Under the Sea and Salt Slow. We have Dead Collections by Isaac Fellman, and House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. And that is a full look at all of the books that I have on my main bookshelf in my bedroom. And because I have no space, there are some books that are sitting on the floor. So if I just shut this over here, you can see the pile of books that I have over there underneath my wardrobe. I have a bunch of new books on top that I haven't hauled yet for a video, but I have 2 books in the Turner series by Cat Sebastian, The Fox and the Dryad by Kellen Graves, the special edition of Heaven Official's Blessing by MXTX, and Real Life by Brandon Taylor. And then at the very bottom, I have the 5 books in the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan, as well as The Sun and the Star by Rick Riordan and Mark Oshiro. And then the other pile over there is actually books I'm planning on unhauling. A lot of them are listed on my Pango, but I actually think by the time you're watching this video, those books will be off my Pango. I've had some of them listed for a while, and I feel like at this point, I might just like unhaul the ones that I only would have gotten like $5 for if they sold, and just put them in a random little free library nearby me. So at least that pile of books will be leaving my apartment very soon. Okay, now that we talked about all the books that are on this shelf, let's go ahead and move into the living room, and we can talk about my book nook area and all of the books I have on the shelves over there. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the bookshelf that is in my reading corner. This shelf is like the half-size Billy bookshelf, both in terms of height and width. I don't know if it's exactly half, but it basically is like the smaller version of even the like thinner version of the Billy bookshelf. So it only is this tall, but as you can see, it's pretty bussin', and I've stacked a bunch of books on top of it. So we're just gonna go right ahead and take a look at all the books on the top, and then I'll move you down into the actual like shelves. Real quickly, in terms of random decor, I have a print of Lestat up here, and even further up, which you can't see, is a print of Weber-Jean and La Mongie from Grandmaster Demonic Cultivation that I got as part of the special edition of the 5th volume. I have this canister, which is a little mushroom. I got it from the Target Dollar Spot. And then this normally is by our mantle, but it's just a piece of acrylic that has our like first date, our engagement, and our wedding date on it. I'm gonna move these off to the side so we can take a look at the actual books up here. Also, in terms of decoration, I have this Funko Pop of Tamatoa, and by I own it, I mean it's actually my wife's. It was a joke gift from my sibling-in-law, and he just lives up here. Unfortunately, because of the shape of his head and the box, his name has to be upside down. I don't know why they did that design-wise, but yeah, he just lives up here. This bookshelf, I should also mention, is a combination of books that I own as well as books that are my wife's. So I'll try and point out which ones are specifically mine and which ones are hers. So starting off, this section of books like right up here is like probably some of my newest acquisitions to my collection. We have The Duke's Sister and I, Blood and Honey, A Discovery of Witches, Simon and Hope Sabian's Agenda, and The Scorpio Races. And then probably actually one of my newest additions overall is this copy of Memorial, which I recently got from a little free library. And then these 2 books, Gulp and Bonk, are both of my wife's. Over here, I have a random box of fairy lights that I eventually will hang up in this area. And then I have my box set of the 3 original books in the Hunger Games trilogy. This section all here is a bunch of cosplay books that are my wife's. And then I have my copies of Gideon the Ninth and Noda the Ninth. Horror the Ninth is currently off because my wife was in the process of rereading it, but normally that also lives right here. I have The Devil in the White City, Rabid, which is my wife's book, Crier's War, The Chosen and the Beautiful, The Raven Boys, Plastic Fantastic, Fun Home, which is actually signed by the author and by any other name. And then on the bottom here, I have 3 hardback books stacked like horizontal. I have Why Are People Into That, which is my wife's book, and then The Stolen Heir and The Prisoner's Throne. As you can see, this area is very, very chaotic, and eventually I would like to get this down to be a much more manageable stack, or maybe even use just this section to be like my immediate TBR, so I have it in all one place. But for right now, it's just incredibly overflowed, but hopefully that will change in the future. Well, now let's move on to talking about the next 2 shelves on my bookshelf. A lot of the books on this top shelf are ones I've already read, and then this bookshelf is a combination of books that are half my wife's and then half mine, as well as pretty much all of our nonfiction books. In terms of decor, we do have a lot of like little charms and stuff that are Siamese cat themed. If you are new on my channel, we have a Siamese cat named Georgie, who is like the love of my life, my perfect little son, and because of him, we've become incredibly like Siamese cat pilled, and just have like a ton of Siamese cat merch in honor of him. A couple other pieces of decor. I had this little like clear jar that I thought was really cute that I think I took from my parents' house. And then I have this wooden mushroom and wooden acorn that were wedding gifts from our friend Henry. This acorn is really cool. It actually like opens up, and I'm definitely going to use this if I eventually cosplay Jude Duarte. If you know, you know. And then over here, in terms of decoration on the second shelf, I have this little bunny container that originally was a candle from Target, I think from their Easter collection last year, that after I emptied it out, I was using it as a makeup brush holder, but then eventually transitioned to using it as a container for all of my bookmarks. And my bookmark collection is pretty decent. I definitely think it's less chaotic than a lot of other people's, since I primarily only get bookmarks as either gifts or from like stores when I buy a book. Not a lot here that I like picked out specifically for myself. My most recent addition is I got this really cute magnetic bookmark that has a Siamese cat on it, obviously. Okay, now let's go ahead and start talking about the books on the shelf. Up here we have The City Beautiful, Lake's Edge, Teach the Torches to Burn, which is a special edition that I have facing outward so I can see the sprayed edges. Then I have one of my favorite series of all time, which is the Montague Siblings series by Mackenzie Lee. So I have all 3 of these books in hardback. And then I have my 3 copies of the Barnes & Noble exclusive editions of the Belladonna trilogy. These books might be on the chopping block in the future. I kind of want to reread Belladonna and Foxglove and then decide if I like the series enough overall to keep all of them. At the very least, I'll keep Belladonna, but I might end up selling the second 2 books in the series. And then down here in terms of like random storage, I have a bunch of magnetic letters so that we can spell things out on our fridge and our bar cart. And the majority of the books, like from here over, are all of my wife's books, which I'll go through really quickly. She has Queen of Teeth, Bloom, The Mountain in the Sea, The Monster's Bones, The Vegetarian, Kink, Annihilation, Vagina Obscura, The Anthropocene Reviewed, and Grit. And then up here are 2 other books of hers, which is The Entangled Life and The 13th Element. And then moving over here are all of my books. I have Nothing to See Here, So You've Been Publicly Shamed, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us, and then the 3 books that I have in my Amanda Montell collection. So Word Slut, The Age of Magical Overthinking, and Cultish. This next shelf, really quickly, I'm just going to go through, is actually majority CDs. As you can see, there's some like overflow over here. But then I also have the 5 volumes I have of The Ancient Magus Bride stored on this kind of like mini shelf, just to give me like a little bit additional storage for books, but primarily this is used as CD storage for my wife's collection. And I also have a little like ceramic mushroom as decor over here as well. And now we have the very last section of this bookshelf. I have a giant collection of tabs over here. A lot of my tabs I actually keep in the little bunny container that has my bookmarks, but the ones that are this like larger size that have like a additional piece that you can like slide into a binder or like a notebook with, they don't fit in that container, so they have to like live down here instead. I don't need any more tabs. If anyone tells you you need more tabs, chances are you don't. So I really need to tell myself not to buy any more of them in the future until I use up at least a couple containers of the ones I have right now. Okay, starting off right here, I have 2 books in the Mist series, so Mist Book of Atris and Mist Book of Tiana. And then going down over here, I have Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, Howl's Moving Castle, Galatea and Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, Her Body and Other Parties, Darius the Great Is Not Okay, Most Ardently, Never Let Me Go, The Lamplighters, The Last Son and The Hanged Man, and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And luckily, there are actually no books stacked on top of this. So the shelf is a little chaotic, but definitely not as bad as some of the other ones I have. So that's a full look at my bookshelves and my book collection. Like I said in the very beginning, it is very chaotic, and I desperately need to figure out some type of better storage solution in the future. This is at the same time somewhat temporary, because obviously I live in an apartment right now, but in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to try and buy a house. And probably once that happens, I'll have a lot more space to have a full collection of bookshelves, all hopefully neatly in a row in one designated room. At the same time though, I don't want to have the possibility of having more space in the future make it so that my collection grows exponentially now and looks really messy. I really want to hone down my collection, make sure that all the books that I read and keep on my shelves are ones I really, really like. So that's a really big goal that I just have for this next year, to read as many books I have in my physical TBR so that I can eventually unhaul the ones that I don't really love and just have my shelves full of books that I have read and really enjoyed. Anyway, all that said and done, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys, as always, so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking, commenting, or subscribing if you aren't already. Consider following me on the Storygraph if you'd like to see my reading updates in real time, or following me on my Bookstagram, which is linked in the description. And that is going to be it for me today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!